So we've just under 2 weeks until the budget, and according to most experts, until about an hour ago, 2 up, 2 down was going to happen. 2 up on income tax, 2p down on national insurance. And I was just about to upload my first YouTube video explaining how this was going to go very badly. And then... yeah, that just happened. I'm Jamie, I'm an accountant, I'm also an elected politician as a councillor here in Cambridge. And what you just saw, that's the problem. Not the policy they abandoned, but the chaos. The leaks, the panic, the U-turn before they've even tried. And this is why progressive taxation never gets done in the UK, and why both technical experts and inequality campaigners are being ignored. So, let's look at this pattern of chaos. This isn't the first time. Over the past few weeks, we've seen leak after leak. We saw income tax rises, we saw national insurance changes, but we also saw ISA restrictions forcing UK equity holdings. There was mentions of cuts to tax release on pensions, capital gains tax increases, inheritance tax changes, with each one creating uncertainty. Wealth managers on YouTube reporting clients who are waiting for the bombs to drop. Each one getting briefed to friendly journalists, creating speculation, driving clicks, but then nothing. Or worse, a panicked U-turn. This isn't governing, this is chaos. And it's poison for two important conversations that need to happen about Britain's economy. The first conversation is that inequality is real. Gary Stevenson and others with millions of viewers are right. Wealth inequality is destroying this country and the world. The top 10% of wealth has gone up by 166% since 2006, and everyone else has remained flat or worse. Now that isn't sustainable. It's making everyone poorer and it's destroying public services. It needs addressing. But there is a second conversation that gets less attention, and that's the technical ways to fix this. So you've got Dan Neidle, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the Resolution Foundation, serious tax experts who are figuring these things out. Their message is simple: fix the broken bits. For example, integrate national insurance with income tax, close the loopholes on various wealth-based taxes, tax property wealth properly. But here's what needs to happen. We need conversations to connect. Inequality is the crisis. It's not just the symptom, but the cause. And yes, we know how to address it through progressive tax reform. Not through annual wealth taxes that have failed in a lot of countries and that are, unfortunately, impossible to administer. But instead, we need comprehensive reform of existing taxes. We shouldn't just tweak national insurance up or down. We should scrap it. We should have one income tax system that doesn't put a heavier burden on work than it does on wealth. We need to tax property wealth properly. We need to close the capital gain loopholes. We need to make landlords pay the same rates as a nurse. It's progressive, it's also evidence-based, and it's actually enforceable. But Labour's chaos is making this impossible. Now, why does this chaos really matter? Well, let's talk about what just happened. Labour still needs £30 billion. Everyone knows this. They've ruled out raising income tax, national insurance and VAT, so they leak this plan, this 2 up, 2 down switch. The plan they just abandoned. So the idea being that income tax could shift from 20% to 22%, national insurance would shift down from 12 to 10%, and they would kind of call it neutral, a swap. That would mean that wealthy pensioners and landlords would pay more and workers wouldn't. I'm quite happy with that. We should make landlords pay the same as nurses, absolutely. So why did it fail before even reaching the budget? And that's because of how they've tried to do it. They were breaking promises. They said they wouldn't raise income tax, and then they leaked plans to raise it to 22%. We can all see that that is word games, just like the national insurance discussions last year. This time they're calling it a switch when people's tax bills are still clearly going to change. And there wasn't an honest case made for it. They wouldn't stand up and say wealthy pensioners should pay more and here's why. Instead, they've sort of kept clinging on to this exclusionary language. They go on about working people, but in some ways that excludes senior nurses or teachers who earn £55,000 a year. Combine all of that with constant leaks, which creates uncertainty, sometimes panic, instead of actually building support. And here's fundamentally what they should have done. They should have stood up, be honest, and make the case. We're asking those with higher incomes, including some people on over 50 grand a year, to contribute more. But this is what it's going to pay for. And wealthy pensioners should pay the same rate as nurses earning the same amount. That's progressive taxation. That's fair. It's politically risky, politically very challenging. But what's happened instead? They leaked it, it created chaos, they got scared, and now they've U-turned. And they've made it worse. Because what's the message now? Progressive taxation equals broken promises. Tax reform equals chaos and U-turns. And Labour, well, they can't be trusted on tax. And they still need 30 billion quid. So what's going to come instead? Well, almost certainly the worst options. It'll be stealth taxes. Worse fiscal drag, affecting many of the poorest people in this country. Complex tweaks to various other taxes. And the things that don't make headlines, but usually hit ordinary people harder. Because they've just proven they can't make the honest case for progressive taxation. And this matters because it poisons everything. For inequality campaigners, so Gary Stevenson I mentioned, he's right, wealth inequality is the crisis, but now when he talks about taxing wealthy people, they're going to think about the chaotic mess that Labour are in. The diagnosis is correct, but Labour's dysfunction has made the remedies look more and more toxic. Whilst for the tax experts, who just continue to be ignored, they've all spent years developing workable solutions, comprehensive reforms that would actually address inequality. So, Dan Neidle, the IFS, the Resolution Foundation, to name but a few of the experts, they've been developing workable solutions, comprehensive reform that would actually address inequality. But now, some of those changes, things like adjusting national insurance and ultimately getting rid of it for income tax, it's all getting associated with broken promises and political chaos. So next time someone proposes proper income tax integration, it's going to look like that thing Labour tried. For the public, the message people are getting is that politicians lie about tax. Progressive taxation is stealth taxation. Any kind of reform leads to chaos. It's actually just the Farage kind that will do that, but we'll get onto that in another day. And it's better to just keep the broken system we now have. I guess better the devil you know. And here's the tragedy. The solutions do exist. They're not complicated. They do need to be handled carefully. But with a long-term plan, we ultimately need to scrap national insurance and have a single progressive income tax on all income. We need to replace council tax with property taxes that reflect actual values. We need to close the capital gains loopholes, especially at death. And we need to look at reforming inheritance tax. I'd make it capital transfer, so that it actually works. Ultimately, we need to campaign on making the system transparent and fair. If explained properly on those principles of fairness, the public could support this. But you have to make the case honestly. You need to build support, show courage, not leak it and U-turn within weeks. So, where are we going? Here we are, less than 2 weeks until the budget. Labour have just demonstrated that they can't do progressive taxation properly. They still need £30 billion. And now the conversation about real tax reform is just being made even more toxic and poisoned. This is exactly why we need to talk about it. I honestly believe that we can fix tax and in doing so help fix Britain. Not with mealy-mouthed word games and leaked plans that get abandoned, but through honest, properly designed reform. This isn't just going to be one video about one budget disaster. I want to do more. So over the coming weeks, I plan to be looking at the triple tax lock, why it makes fixing anything impossible, what Labour actually announces in the budget, if anything, and what they've already bottled, how to properly reform income tax, why taxing wealth, not work, is correct, but how we do it properly, how we do it effectively, what other countries do that we could learn from. And ideally, I want to work towards a complete alternative where we actually try and cut taxes for everyone earning under £50,000 a year, but raise more revenue to fund the NHS, education, and everything else that makes this nation great. Now, the experts know what works. The public, I think, could support it, but the only thing missing is political courage. Labour have just proved they don't have it, so now we've got to move on. Next up, my next video, I'm going to look at that triple tax lock, the impossible promise that just trapped Labour. And if you would like to support my efforts, then please do like, share and subscribe to this video. These conversations are really desperately needed, and we need to connect more people together. I hope people like us can show how, and I hope also to see you soon. Thank you.